Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Ramsey Custom Shop. And I've got about $1,000 worth of aluminum here that I'm getting ready to cut. This is a piece of 3/16. This is a piece of quarter. And I'm going to use almost all of it for two signs that I'm making. And, you know, I was talking to a friend of mine that has a plasma table. He's got an industrial, you know, high dollar, supposed to be best of the best plasma table, and he has really struggled with it. And he came for a visit, and he's thinking about getting a true cut table. And I'm not going to name his name because I'm not sure if he wants to be named or not. But anyway, the guy does badass work. Really impressed with what he does. But he was saying that, you know, he's got a 5x10 table, and he uses a lot of 5x10 aluminum sheets, something in the 090, 080 range. And, you know, so those are, you know, fairly expensive, not as expensive as 1/4 inch. But he basically said that the whole time his table's cutting, he's got his hand right here, you know, just waiting to hit the E-stop because he's waiting for something to mess up, you know, and he wants to be able to catch it before it does too much damage. So, man, I can't tell you how happy I've been with the True Cut table. This is the second one I've owned, and it did take me a little bit of, you know, trial and error to get it dialed in and running good, but I don't even hesitate now. But that's not an excuse to just, you know, lollygag around when you've got $1,000 worth of material. And let me say this: if I mess this material up, this is going to be a no money making job. I've got to go buy new material, and the cost of this material is more than the actual time, labor, or my, you know, profit, if you will, in the job. So if I have to replace it, I'm going to lose money on the job, and it's a couple of days worth of work because there's other fab work that's got to be done. Anyway, so I thought I would make this a video. A couple things. One is, you know, the question is, do you trust your equipment? Do you trust your plasma table, and do you trust the support that you get? Is True Cut CNC the best plasma table ever made? I don't know. You know, I mean, they're a good company. I really like them. And I know there's a lot of other good tables out there, and people are really happy with those as well. So I don't want to, you know, badmouth anybody else or say True Cut's better or anything like that. I'm just saying I've been extremely happy, and I've been able to get the most out of this table. But the rest of this video is I'm gonna take you along as we cut this, and I'm gonna come up with a checklist here of things that you can do to mitigate any potential issues when you have such a risky job at stake. I mean, now if you're cutting 16 gauge cold rolled or 18 gauge or something, and you have a mess up, you know, it's no big deal. If you mess up a half a sheet, you've just wasted $30. If you mess up a half a sheet of this, you know, you're talking $300-400. So anyway, this is going to be a checklist, and it's going to be, you know, kind of rudimentary, and I'm going to have a link to a place where you can download the checklist if you're interested in that, of things to double check before you get ready to cut a big job. So the first thing that you want to do is, you know, is your sheet orientation. You know, it's really going to be important because, look, let me show you the cam over here on this. And again, this is kind of a long-winded video, but you guys bear with me on this. You're going to want to stick around. So here's the sheet, and here's how much of the sheet's being used. And you can see from top to bottom here, we don't have a lot of room there. And so the first thing is, you know, can you talk your customer into letting you tweak in the dimension? Now this is a 48-inch sign, and I've let the customers allowed me to go 47 inches. So I have an inch to play with top and bottom. But at the same time, you know, when you're cutting out something that large, I mean, a little plate offset, something's not exactly square, you know, could definitely be a problem. So that's the first thing is, you know, do you have your plate loaded in a square way? And I use these gauge blocks, and I just set these in here, one at each end of the table. But if you want, you know, you can double check this, and I will be doing that. I'm not going to show you here because I'm doing the camera handheld. But what I'm going to do is take the torch and put it at the very corner there, and then just jog a table down and see if it's online at the corner down here. And you know, just as another way to verify that. The other thing you want to do is make sure you have your ground clamp hooked up. A lot of jobs I do, I don't hook the ground clamp up. Obviously the table is grounded, the slats are grounded, but this is just an extra measure of protection against that. And make sure your ground clamp is not in the way of your machine. You know, I've got it hanging off down here because my two jobs are cutting up here and they're using most of this space, so that's why I've ran it down here, to get a place where there's no cutting going on and I've got clear travel. My ground clamp's not in the way. So that's kind of a, you know, a setup thing. So next up is going to be consumables. I will put a brand new electrode, brand new tip in there. Just make sure everything, you know, make sure your shield is good and clean. None of your holes are stopped up. So again, I'm gonna have all these in a checklist that you can download and print out and have by your machine, just something to double check with. So new consumables, I'm gonna be running at a 65 amp tip. I've got a brand new pack I just picked up yesterday for this job. 65 amp tips, and I've got plenty of electrodes, so I'll be sticking a new one of those in there. So the other thing you want to do in cam here is on your lead in and lead outs. You know, it's a good time to go, and you see the one things I've done is I've created layers for each step of this. So I've got these letters, I've got these bigger letters here, I got this inner circle that gets cut on an outside offset, and this outer circle that gets cut on an inside offset. Kind of confusing, but look what I did. I just named them the inner circle but cut on the outside, and outer circle cut on the inside. Again, on normal jobs I wouldn't do all this, you know, but when you got something this risky, you want to protect yourself against any issues and not have a problem. So do a nice job on your lead in and lead outs. If you notice, I was in the middle of working on this, but if you notice that my lead in is you know, somewhere close to the center of the letter, so that you're not up against the edge of the letter, and you see I'm using an arced lead in, and I also have the lead in on an arc. So I've always found that doing an arced lead in on an inside of an arc will help you manage that the best. So this one here, you know, I'll move it up to here. This I, I'll put it on the side, and you can see the A, you know, I'll put it again up here in the arc. So go through, make sure you got all your cam set up properly. You know, make sure you've got your the next thing I'm going to do, I'm not going to show you this, but I will dial in and set different cut speeds for each of these layers that are going to be cut. So the inside of a large radius circle, I'll cut that pretty much close to what the book spec is. These little letters here, I'll slow those way down because we want to, you know, retain the detail. So spend some time, do a good job on your letters in your cam, or your, you know, your lead in and lead out. So that's the next step in the checklist, and then I'll come back and show you the next step after that. I was going to show you this real quick too. In your cam, as we're just looking at cam there, double check and make sure that the order of operation is correct. Here's something I did in a hurry the other day, and it actually cut the outside profile first, and then it went in and cut the insides of the letters, and look what a terrible job it did, how far offset the letters are, because once you cut the outside, this thing can move around. So your order of operation is going to be really important. You know, I'll cut these small letters first, and then I'll cut these larger inner letters, and then the outer circles, and then the outside overall profile. So I don't have them built in yet, but you'll see the order here, and you can change that order. So the order of operation, double check it, make sure you got it right. Otherwise you'll end up with some crap like that. Okay, here's one more setting you want to double check. Some machines may have this, some may not, but this Safe Z comes defaulted at 1 inch on the True Cut machines, and the Safe Z is how far up your torch moves between each rapid. So, you know, it's going to come cut this letter, and then it's going to come up and move over, pierce, and cut this letter. Well, if it only comes up 1 inch and you have a little tip up, it can easily drag your torch offline. But I just set that to 2 inches, so we should be pretty good there on, and you could go even higher because you see all the travel space that the True Cut machines give you. Now, if you buy a True Cut machine now, it's going to come with a different style torch mount that has collision detection built into it. So if you were to drag across the tip up, the collision sensors would pick it up and actually e-stop the machine right in its tracks, so that you could fix it, clear the tip up, hit your cycle start, and resume right where you were. All right, you see that anytime you change the consumables out on your machine, you're going to get this error code 50. So you have to turn the machine off and back on to clear that error code. So just make sure you do that. And you notice also that my machine voltage is set to 45, and we just put a 65 amp nozzle in it. So we're going to go up to 65 amps. Make sure you do that. That's very important. So I'll power cycle it and we'll clear that out. The other thing you want to double check and make sure that your air pressure has the A on it there, so it's set to automatic. All right, so we're getting really close now. The one thing you want to do also is make sure that your air compressor is on and that your dryer is on if you have one. And if you don't have a dryer, you should have one. So the last thing you want to do here is you want to set your zero and your starting point. You see we're kind of at the corner. I've got it cheated in just a little bit that way because I know I have an inch to play with that way. I have less room to play with this way. Don't forget to do this. So right here you want to come to all your DRO and set your zero out all of your axes, because if you don't do that, which I've done that many times, where you just start cutting, and it's going to cut from wherever that last home position was. So double check that. And then the last thing that we're going to do here is in Mach 4, other programs, controllers may have the same. Oh, one other thing, if you're running a PC-based controller, give your PC a fresh reboot right before you do it. Even if you've been working on it for the day or whatever and it seems to be fine, give it a fresh reboot, and give your controller a fresh reboot as well. So I just rebooted the controller. I just booted up a little bit ago before we got started. And then the last thing I want to show you here is we're gonna click this, toggle this to what's called a dry run, and this is gonna go just make the motions and do all the cutting. In fact, heck, let's just do it. So we're gonna hit cycle start here. All right, so we got our dry run going. The good thing about this is it gives you a look at how well is the machine running. Does it look like it's going at a good pace for the size of the part or dimension of the part that you're trying to cut. This is cutting those smaller letters, and you don't want it to be like jerking around because you're running it way too fast for such a small contour. And overall, I'm pretty happy with this. This should be running. We have our machine set on 85, and I think I put a feed rate variable of 70%, so it's running at around 50 inches a minute on these letters here. The other thing it'll let you know is, are you going to bump up against a limit switch somewhere, because you've not factored something in. And then lastly, when it cuts out that big outside diameter, you want to make sure you're not, cutting into the part next to it, or, cutting too close to the edge or something like that. So we'll let this dry run finish up, and then next we'll get it cutting. The other thing that doing a dry run lets you do is listen to the machine. When it's running, you got the plasma, it's pretty loud, and you can't really hear these clear path servos on this screw cut machine are super, super quiet. But by having it doing a dry run, you can really listen. Are you getting good gear mesh? Are there anything binding up, that could cause you any kind of issues? Listen how quiet those motors run. Okay, well, you guys saw that thing cutting, and we spent about an hour just double checking. And again, I'm gonna have a link in the description of the video to the checklist if you want to get that. If you're a CNC plasma operator, it might be something handy to put up on the wall. And I'm gonna do one for myself because I don't have one. I just kind of made it up as I did this video. And if you guys are CNC plasma operators and you have any thoughts on what you would add as far as checklist items, just leave a comment and let me know what that is, and I'll get it updated. So overall, really happy with this. These are just as they came off the table, so no cleanup or anything. 1/4 inch material. I mean, you can see actually this is 3/16. There's hardly any dross at all. I mean, just a little bit here and there to clean up. And you know, there's a back piece and a front piece. This gets painted white, and this is red and orange. You know, professional logo for this company out in California. And then I just did one fit up. Now that back piece is not oriented correctly. Those holes out there should be on this side, but just to see how well it's fitting from one piece to the other. And you can kind of see the gap there. And it's like that all the way around. It's they're just identical, and they sit perfectly together there. A little dross here and there I got to clean up, but overall really pleased with it. So all right guys, that'll be it on this video. Remember, TrueCut CNC has free shipping until the end of July, and then it'll be over after that. That's probably about a $1,200, $1,500 savings, depending on which table you get. So go check them out. Thanks guys.